Gilbert. Thank you everybody for coming to, I believe this is my third coffee with the mayor. See if we do the count by the month here. Third coffee with the mayor. I appreciate you guys all coming. I thought today we kind of just give you a little review of what we've been working on for the past 3 or 4 months. Many of you know very well what we're working on, but I thought I would review it and then just open the floor for questions like we have in the past. Kind of a freestyle. No topic is off limits to me, and I know there's plenty to talk about. But so as you guys know, one of the things that we've been working on is this move from at-large elections to district elections. I know a lot of you that are here, that you come to a lot of meetings, you've been watching it very closely. So we just finished our third public meeting at council with conversations that go on with districting. And so far we've also had, in case you missed them, 2 public workshops. One was at South Valley Junior High. The other one was at Christopher High School just last Saturday or so, 2 Saturdays ago. So we feel very comfortable. We feel like we're doing a lot of outreach. We're getting great feedback from the community. And so far so good. The most recent meeting that we just had, our last council meeting, is if you were there, if you've been paying attention, starting to see a narrowing down of maps of what the districts in Gilroy might look like. And for some of you might be wondering, well, who chose those maps? Who made those maps? The community has been making those maps, right? So in case you don't know, there's a website that, of a service that the city has. Thank you very much. We have a consultant that's helping us with this transition to districts, and the parameters of state law and the parameters of what it takes to put districts together are what's helping drive the way that maps look. So there's really 4 criteria. So when the public submit a map, and if the criteria is way off course, the demographer already immediately flags it as problematic. So the people who made that map can actually go back to it and make some changes. And inevitably, what's happening is the final 3 or 4 or 5 maps that we're looking at, they're quite similar. They're quite similar to each other. And I think that's happens by just the process of elimination when folks follow the guidelines. This is what happens is that we're coming up with some districts, and we're nowhere near yet to figure out which districts that we'll be in. But that will happen around May 5th. Is that the right date, you guys? May City Council meeting, right? So we have one more public workshop here to continue the conversation about the districts, and then we have May 5th. And then at that point, either May 5th or May 19th, I think council meeting.
It's leaning towards 19th.
Yeah,
so
19th. Yeah. May 19th, we'll make a decision at council about which districts, the district boundaries. So that's one thing we've been working on. Another thing that I write about and I talk about is our strategic plan process. Just as a reminder, that happens every 2 years. Each council comes up with a strategic plan. Again, those have been public meetings, and we get feedback from the constituents and the public gets a comment. And we're in the middle of that process right now of coming up with the goals and ambitions of this community that will take place over the next 2 to 5 to plus years. But of course, associated with goals and ambitions is money. And part of the process of coming up with a strategic plan is figuring out what it's going to cost. So, if there's any headwinds, if you're watching the news and you see that maybe there's some drawback in the economy a little bit, and as you know, are some of our revenue in our cities based on sales tax. And I believe the projections that are for sales tax in any community right now, they are not going up. I don't know where they're going, but it feels like most people agree they are not going up. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about and talking about amongst ourselves when we're coming up with these ideas and hopes and ambitions is the budget. Some other things you may have heard recently. I know in past meetings here, people have asked about the Garlic Festival. So you may have seen in the news that there's an agreement has been struck between the Gilroy Gardens and the Gilroy Garlic Festival Association, a conditional agreement that if the Garlic Festival Association can follow through with the last requirements, which is typical whenever you have an event, whether it's a parade or a festival. The requirements are, insurance and health codes and alcohol beverage license, security. So those are the last conditions that the Garlic Festival Association is going to make. And then there should be an event out at Gilroy Gardens. They're calling it the South County Grove. This is that picnic grass area that's outside of the amusement park fence line, but it's at the Gilroy Gardens property. And this is where this 3,000 per day Garlic Festival will happen. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of chatter around town about, well, too bad it's not bigger. And I don't disagree with that, but this is what it is going to be this year. And what I say to people is, this is the beginning of a new era, not the new era. So let's get through a year where we can have some type of event and then start talking about the future after that. As a reminder, why I have a Garlic Festival for 40 years. The Garlic Festival event that we had in Gilroy was the biggest fundraising mechanism in this community for 40 years. Schools, arts, sports, churches, not to mention camaraderie, economic activity, community pride. There's a lot of reasons why I believe this community wants to have this festival back, and that's why I fought for it. So I'm really excited about that. With that, I will open the floor to questions like we have done in the past. And before I take the first one, I'm sorry, I think I do this every single time, but I would like to introduce, as always, I do this, I forget every time, our city manager, Jimmy Forbes is here, right? Our public information officer, Michelle Bedell is here. Councilmember Klein is here. Thank you for coming. Councilmember Terrence Fergassi and his wife Nancy are here. Thank you very much for coming. And I'd also like to mention my dad is here over there in the pink shirt. Still watching out for me in case I mess up. I'm gonna go report to my mom. So, it does happen still. So I'd like to open the floor for questions, and whoever brought me this coffee, thank you very much. Who's first? Yes, TJ.
Any word on the soil sample for the ice rink yet?
Yeah, way to go, right after.
Any day now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm literally being honest, we may have it this week, but it's due by the middle of April, and it's.
Okay.
It's the middle of
Today's the
April.
12th, we're almost there.
Yeah, so depends on what your definition of middle of April is, I guess. But, yeah, I expect to go to council first meeting in May and talk about the ice rink and where we're at and what we have. So let's keep our fingers.
So you haven't gotten the results yet?
If I did, I'd be out there.
Yeah.
I'd have it out there,
I know.
especially if it's good news.
Thank you. That's a great question. Thanks. Hi, Tom. Yes, sir.
I have a personal thing. I'm sorry, say it real quick.
Sure.
I needed some patchwork done, so I called all over. I paid guys money, they did a crappy job.
Yeah.
So I called with the senior center, and they said, well, we got this rebuilding together. And Gilroy puts money into it, and all this citizen account. So I called them up, and they said, we do stuff, but they don't know anything but they do come in and they'll repair your home. And I said, well, I think I'm a little above the average of low income. Well, you're gonna make $116,000 a year?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So you're eligible.
Yeah.
So I bid for it.
Yeah.
And that was 10 months ago.
Ah.
And they had me jumping through hoops and all this stuff. And now they're supposed to be coming out and tell me when they come out, really do it, finally get to it.
Thanks for the feedback.
We haven't got the funds,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna have to reply again.
Yeah. No. So let's see if I can help. Let's see if I can, first of all, what he's talking about is there are nonprofit organizations and service providers that operate in Gilroy. These folks, I believe, operate throughout the entire Bay Area.
No,
And
they're county,
County.
this county here.
Okay, so throughout the county, we have a pretty large county. And I believe that they do receive, in the past, they have received CDBG funds from the city of Gilroy, right? Which are funds that the Gilroy gets from the federal Housing Urban Development Department. So they are not a city, they are not a city agency,
No,
right? They do receive funds from the city through the federal dollar distribution. And as far as I know, they have had a fairly great reputation doing what they're doing. Why you fall into a 10-month delay, I do not know, but that's something that I could follow up on.
okay.
Yep.
I didn't call them up last week.
Yeah.
No.
I'll follow up on it. So thank you. It's good to know if, you know, because we want to know, right? Council and staff want to know if there are service providers that we're helping with funding, if they're doing a good job or not. So great feedback.
Actually,
Appreciate it.
I'll help you out. If you give me your contact information, we have a housing division. And that's what they do is try to make sure that our partners are doing, you know,
Got your copy here.
all right, so give it to me and I'll get you in contact with Christy, who is
Thank
our
you.
housing manager. She
Thank you.
knows that.
Great feedback. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious about money, just how much of it comes from the city versus the Port Authority versus the commercial organizations themselves? How is that allocated?
I'll take some help on that.
Yeah, okay. So the Sharks Ice is funded through what's called a revenue bond. And the bond is, so let's say it's $30 million. The financing authority of the city would issue that bond. It would not actually be the city, but the council is the financing authority. It's a mechanism to do financing. So they would issue the bond and then the city would enter into an agreement, a contractual agreement with the Sharks, that the Sharks have to repay that bond off of the revenues generated at the area. So if they defaulted on that, we could go after the Sharks to make sure they make those payments, or we would take back the operations of the building. But there's certain things. Yeah, there's no impact to the general taxpayer on that. We would have to go to the ballot if we just did a general tax for that. So they're contractually obligated to meet the requirements. And they're in similar agreements with San Jose and other places. And during COVID, when the rates were closed for an entire year almost, they made all their payments. They honored their obligations. So I think we're getting business with pretty good people.
What was the next result?
That's it's really that's it. Then we go to the next step and say, we know what the cost could be. Are the Sharks willing to absorb because construction's gone up, of course, everything has. Are the Sharks still willing to go through with that commitment? If they are, then we will ask the financing authority / city council to issue bonds. And that funding will be in place in the next 3-4 months and we'll be ready to go.
Is the bidding process through the city or is it through the Sharks?
The design build process that we have, we're looking at the general contractor not being a bidding process, but all of the subcontractors being a bidding process. And that would be through the Sharks, but they have to follow public contract codes because of the funding and things like that. So it would be competitive bidding for the subcontracts. I'm sorry.
You said just subcontracts?
Well, everything's a subcontract except for the general contractor.
And that'll be the next thing too, that's picked is that general contractor.
Yeah.
And they've also, the city and the Sharks got hired agency to get the budget together, right? As far as.
Right. So we have 2 consultants working for us right now. The design is done, all that's done. And so we hired somebody for the soil and then we hired somebody which is really a professional estimator. And their job is to get us the best possible number they can get. So we know when we go to the bond, do the bond, that we will have enough money, you know, for the market we're entering into for construction. So.
Not depending on an architect, but depending on people who kind of know.
Yeah, the architect is the one that kind of told us some of the problems we have, like the dirt, but we can't trust the architect. We have to hire somebody who knows what they're doing. And all the field work's done. It's just, I guess it's in the labs right now. And as soon as I get it, you'll know.
Like you said, the design's all done, but it's design build, right? So when the design happens, once the general contractor design.
The architect is done, but the architect won't be the builder. You know, so essentially what design build is if the architect wanted to also build it, they could, but in normal contracting, they wouldn't be allowed to because it's seen as kind of a conflict of interest. But there's a provision in the government code that, like for us in Gilroy, if we're over $1 million, it's considered that the project is so big that it makes sense that the designer could also be the builder. And so you get a lot of efficiency out of that, so.
And there could be some design build aspects in the term, in the name of value engineering, that type of thing during that stage that he's talking about.
That's the good part about getting the contractor at that point, because he can help you with any value engineering you have to do in order to bring that cost down as you bid it out for each trade. Yeah.
I guess and also thinking back to is taking into account potential delays and stuff, what that means to the budget and stuff, right?
Yeah, I think once you issue the bonds, and the Sharps are really putting themselves out there that if there's cost overruns, we're not covering it. So we're saying, okay, this is what you said you needed, and they've done this before. If you've been in San Jose and seen the work they've done at the Ice Center, they're very good at this, and very good track record.
And certainly everybody that's involved in this process is already wondering and considering and maybe have some concern. If you notice the world markets right now are a little topsy-turvy, right? And I mean, the product that goes into an ice rink comes from many parts of the world. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the world economy. And these costs could jump immediately. So those are the things we have to consider.
I think the partnership is a good partnership. It's a really good partner to be with in this type of project.
So,
I'm going to introduce one more person. Gilbert Ramos walked in right at the last second. I said hello to him. Gilbert is the field representative for Assembly member and Speaker of the Assembly, Robert Rivas. So Robert Rivas is from Hollister, but this is his district. So you guys have any state issues, please direct your attention to Mr. Ramos in the back. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Nice meeting you all. Yes, Gilbert Ramos, representative for Speaker Rivas.
Sure, of course. Anytime. Yes, sir.
Gabriel Guevara, fellow Gilroy. I just had two issues that I wanted to, like, not issues, but general concerns, that I wanted to bring up. And this would be a next one. That,
Sure.
I've noticed that since I've lived here for the past 7 years, that there's been like a semi-frequent fertilizer plant smell that has, I'm sure everyone that lives here is familiar with this potent smell that comes about every once in a while. I think it's coming from like a fertilizer plant somewhere, like towards Hollister area. And I was just wondering if the city has made any like efforts to analyze like see all people that live here, residents, and if there's any way that there would be some potential way to mitigate that, like either having them like do something. I don't know the owner or the facility or the business city, but I have seen it on some of like the public forums, like the Facebook groups and next door. And I think it's a shared issue. So often. That's one, and then the other issue is there's an affordable apartment, the Glenwood Ranch apartments that have been built. I think it's one of the most newest affordable housing apartments that have been built. There's a lack of enforcement for parking. There's no parking allowed on the main street that's outside the building, and there's people like 10+ cars parking along. So I have seen tickets being issued, but as soon as like 5 p.m. comes by to like 6 in the morning, there's no enforcement at all. And I just wanted to bring that up and see if there's something that the city would do to increase the enforcement, just from the safety standpoint. I see like people that ride in the bike lane are constantly riding the road, and it's just like a potentially dangerous situation. So there's two issues that I want to bring up.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Do you have any background on that, Glenn?
I have answers for both if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the first thing, the smell. The city is not that's not our role. There's a group called the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, And they handle all air quality issues in the region and in the entire Bay Area. Because, smell goes over different districts, you don't always know what it is, but they're the experts and they're the ones that if you have a complaint or an issue with something coming out of that fertilizer plant, you have to connect with them. We don't have any enforcement authority. It's not our role, but it's called Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And if you get with me later, I can write it out for you. It's a little goofy. Okay, on the second thing, with Glen Loma, this is gonna be my go-to anymore, is that we just launched an app called Leroy Connect. And the easiest way to get your concerns into the system is using that app or going on our website and logging it. And you may say, I've logged it once, I've logged it twice, but it goes into kind of our inventory of things we need to work on. And if we get 5, 6, 7 people logging that in, saying we would like some more enforcement out there, we're gonna come out and enforce more. So that's what I would suggest. But as you mentioned, we do some enforcement. We don't have what I'd say a robust parking enforcement program. But we do respond to citizen concerns. And the last thing I'll say about the Glen Loma area is that problem is not going to get better probably throughout town because of so much of the housing that is being developed is not required to have parking, especially if they're close to a transit center or something like that. So,
Yeah, go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah, the thing, I took a tour out at our straw facility and with Recipe Saeed, and he actually brought up to me that some of the smell that you're smelling is from the processing of the plant that's next door, that they have a discharge area where they discharge, and that has been creating a large part of the smell in the area, that they've been doing some mitigation recently that's helped with that. But that might be something also, Jimmy, that you can look at as well, since it is within our jurisdiction, how they discharge or they don't discharge in that particular area. The second thing I'll say is, the Gilroy Connect, C-Click Fix thing, everybody here, because you're so involved, you're here, right? Should understand that get this app, get it on your phone, and anything you see in the city, it is an amazing new thing. And city staff has been really, really good already at following up the things that are on there. A couple of us council members are a little more active than the general public, but that's because we've been focused for some time on it. But every one of you, if you see something, go ahead and just take a picture of it in this app, put in there what it is. It can be anything from seeing weeds where they shouldn't be, seeing trash where they're seeing an encampment, seeing a restroom that isn't the way that it should be. Anything that you see in the city that you think, hey, this isn't quite right, we should do something about this. That's the only way everybody's going to know. And the beautiful part about it is you see everybody else's. So for good or for bad, it's airing the dirty laundry in a way that makes everybody want to now take a look and take care of something. And when you have situations where you have a real problem that multiple people see, it's going to get the highest priority, absolutely. So please be involved in that and everybody get out. And I know Jimmy, I give him a lot of credit for this, putting this out there, because it does obviously create a lot of activity and turmoil and everything else. So thank you for that.
I'll comment a little success story, I believe, on C-Click Fix. I was at a meeting the other day, and a gal that I went to high school with, right? This happens a lot to us. She's coming up, I want my trees fixed, right? And I said, right here, go to C-Click Fix. But she knew nothing about it. She did it right there when we were at the meeting. And that evening, she called me back and said, wow, I already got a response. Yep. And the next morning, she got a comment from staff saying when they will look at it, and they'll give it the history of the last time the tree was pruned. So it's not gonna be perfect, nothing's perfect, but it's a real great step forward of how to solve some of those
and
problems.
if you think of efficiency, they didn't have to call the mayor, who then calls me, who then I call the public works director, who then calls the operation guy, who then gives it to the admin assistant, who then gives it to the crew.
Yeah.
It happened through a phone and
Yeah.
showed up on somebody's workflow.
Yeah.
Love
And it
it.
doesn't have to be a city property either. It can be a business that's not
Yeah.
following something correctly, that you see something that they've been out of compliance or should be, maybe they are. Yeah, you can report anything you want, and then the city can take a look at it.
And one more component, and I'm not a huge techie person, but the other thing it does, I don't know the correct terminology. When you take the picture, it tells the system where exactly where the problem is. Geolocation. So you don't have to say, I think I'm at 7250 First Street. It tells you exactly where it is. And I would like to comment a little bit further on the fertilizer comment. Yeah, I believe the smell is coming from a different area. And just so everyone knows, there's no fertilizer factory in our region. Just because there's a lot of, potential hazards that come with fertilizer factory. It's a composting facility, right, where they're just breaking down green plant waste into compost. So not a fertilizer factory by any means. Yeah, great questions, great comments. Yes, sir.
Tell us about the budget, what's gonna be cut. That's all.
That's
Yeah, right to the point.
public engagement.
Look, we're, I don't know. That's a consensus from council that, these are the things, we're gonna come up with the ideas, right? That's the best way to do it, is come up with what you want, the dream list, and then we have to prioritize what are the cuts, if any, probably some, to get what we want, right? So I don't know what the cuts are, and I'm on one person, right? So,
Talking with the county and the state, but they're looking at cutting. See a lot of stuff on TV.
yeah, all the way to federal.
Yeah, I
For sure.
would say not cuts, I'd say allocation of resources. We're not in a
Exactly.
situation where we're.
Thank you.
Unless
Exactly.
you guys know something I
No,
don't
no,
know,
no,
but, we're not cutting, we just may have to move things around, but that's what every budget cycle is. No, we're growing, not as fast as I hoped we would financially, but we're okay, we're hanging in there.
And I'd say that I agree with Jimmy, and I mean, there are things that will come down maybe and other things that'll go up, but also I think this council is looking toward opportunity, right? And so there are things that have been changing in the city in terms of how and where we collect revenue in the city, and so you have an opportunity in managing a budget like this to say, okay, we're just gonna keep cutting, we're just gonna figure out with what we have, how we're going to redistribute it. Or we can be a little bit more proactive and think about how do we raise top line revenue in the city? How do we look at an evolving city and say, okay, Alton Malls were great 25 years ago, and it's a great cash cow going forward. What are we doing there? What are we doing with TOT? What are we doing with some of these other things, these levers that we have, that maybe they're not 1 year things, but they're 5 year things, or they're 10 year things. So we're not looking at cutting, just rearranging, but we're looking at how we're going to be able to expand and the other things that we want to do.
Looking for other growth zones potential and how you reallocate.
Joni, you had your hand up.
I was wondering, weather's getting good, are we gonna start fixing the roads again?
Yeah, let's see, let me give a shot at this, see if I can handle this. The road repair season is generally right when schools get out. So you will see a lot of activity, right? That's typically the way it happens here in Agoura and other cities. So you'll start to see a lot of activity right when school's out. So unfortunately, that's still a month and a half or two away. But yeah, we need it.
It shows on the website, doesn't it, Jimmy, what the next roads are, so if you do have a question about which road or road.
Is this year 3, just year 4, the cycle
I
3?
believe this is year 4.
Four,
we're about to
right?
Start.
And then we'll look at
Yeah,
this
go
new
ahead.
budget of how we keep allocating funds to keep that going. So we keep instead of getting back where we got and having reallocated, keeping the ball moving forward.
Yeah, Jack.
So there's a new sidewalk program. Will it be a webpage that shows the lineup of sidewalks for the next
Yeah,
foreseeable increment?
we were actually just talking about that recently. Where are we at? Yeah. No, sorry, thank you. He asked about sidewalks. We have a revised sidewalk program. The way it was in Gilroy for many years, right? We called it what, 50-50 or 80-20, depending on the funding. But if you had your property, you'd go out and get a contractor and you would share it with the city, the cost, once it got redone. Now, the city is reaching out to contractors and identifying 10 or 15 or 20 areas around town and getting some economies of scale by doing it as one big project. And then the shared cost, the city gets the reimbursement from the homeowner instead of the other way around. So that's what Jack's talking about. But the list of, I can't answer that, and hopefully Jimmy will.
Yeah, I thought we did.
We did have a list.
Yeah, we have a list, I believe it's on our website, for the request for proposals.
Right.
And like the mayor said, we're now bundling things, so it should be a little bit more efficient. But, yeah, if you want to know when your sidewalk, is going to get repaired, you can use SeaClick Fix as well, take a picture of it, but we have, you know, I don't know if I don't think we have the actual list, like, for the program.
I'm looking for a list of.
Okay,
So
so
who's
just,
next?
property.
Just like the streets, right? Like the streets, who's next?
Like the street.
Yeah. Especially in our neighborhood, I'm wondering too.
Yeah.
Because we have the big trees and we have some challenging sidewalks. So, yeah, really do. A great question, and I would like to follow up on that because I would like to know as well. Yeah. We'll go Jeannie first. Oh, okay.
Is there gonna be any impact on Gilroy Fire if, county succeeds in, resolving South County Fire? Would you like to see this area in the second plan?
Sure. That's a tough one for me, man. Like, I'm taking help from anybody on this one. This is
yeah.
new territory for me and evolving by the day. You want to?
The answer in the simplest form is yes.
Okay.
There will be
great.
an impact, and I believe, I'm not involved in the voting, and I don't care about that process. But I do know I spent an hour and a half yesterday with the county fire chief talking about this. And I will tell you one improvement that we will have is Tree Haven, which is out there by the gardens, will be staffed 365 days a year, 24/7. That is a commitment they want to make. So I think that will be a service improvement that will impact the area in a good way. Going farther along, I can't really vouch for the things that don't happen in our area, but I will tell you, we were already looking at discussing our boundary drop agreements, auto aid agreements, mutual aid agreements with CAL FIRE. And so instead, now we're just shifting that over to negotiating that with County Fire. But I think the Tree Haven is going to be the most marked improvement that we'll have.
Thank you.
You might have talked about this earlier, you're talking about the sharks. Moving forward, does the city have any plan in the general plan specific in bringing right now sports complexes in the county after if the sharks comes through and it does get built? Is there any plan to put it, try to push through that or that will still exist to bring that into the city and also property there in front where then you could have maybe it's lodging or restaurants and to really make that full fledged.
Great question. I have, since I've been around, there's been no conversation about trying to bring that into the city. It's hard for me to imagine that one day that wouldn't happen soon though. So I'll take some help on that.
Yeah, it's certainly something we should discuss, but LAFCO, the previous version of LAFCO, and I think you hit the nail on the head, we're not too sure what LAFCO is going to be in the next couple of years, but the previous version of LAFCO just didn't have the appetite to annex it, but this version might. And so I think that's a conversation we'll have to have.
Starts to get the island, and I know they don't like that.
Right.
If it's part of it's brought in and other parts not.
And the biggest reason why we want to annex it is that any sales tax generated on that property, we don't get. So it's a conversation that.
So would you consider is what you're saying? I know you can't control that though. The city might.
Well, I think in general, that whole area, that when we start, we're gonna have a strategic plan with the Council about Economic Development. We're gonna talk a lot about that area because I think that's the next kind of great opportunity for us. As Councilmember Fugazi said, you know, that area is service request central. It's a dump. And we have tried and annexing certain areas of that might help us have a little bit more control because a lot of these things we don't have control, Caltrans and the county and things like that. But I think we'll have a long conversation about that area.
The other side of the road, Balsa, is all in the city limits, to turn almost by the bridge. The other side is not. So, yeah.
But if you're talking about the frontage road, you're talking about that area, it's prime for something good to happen there once that arena gets open.
Improving our gateways.
Improving our gateways.
That's the big one right there.
I think that's.
Tom.
Who's responsible for Monterey Road between the Chestnut and the freeway? And that whole interchange there, I mean, that place is one big pothole.
Yeah.
And they're closing the access from Gavin College, putting all that traffic over to Monterey Road, over that off ramp. Who's responsible for fixing that road? When can you expect to see that?
The parts of it are Caltrans and parts of it are the city, and there is a project, I believe it's this year, to repair that road, so, it's
From
coming.
both, right?
Yeah.
Both.
From both, yeah, it's this summer,
Improvements coming.
As well as the intersection.
at Luchessa and
Uh,
Monterey, or the one,
Into the sports park.
the one into the sports park is under design.
Yeah.
And so that's a project coming as well, and I would expect that would be in the next year.
Stop right now.
Stop line.
Yeah.
Only in design.
No, actually, it's, that project is not contingent on the arena. They're not related because it's been in our master plan to change that intersection anyway. And so it's in design right now, it'll go out to bid, so I'd say within the next year, you'll see some work out there. And we have to have that done before that arena gets built, because the traffic is gonna be a lot of changes there.
But you're 100% right. I drive that every day. It's rough. And I think when summer hits, it's gonna be, we gotta do something. It's not the only place, but it's really alligator. Yeah. Yes, Tom.
Getting back to his question about the sidewalks, if you go in the City Hall Public Works Department under engineering, it has, talks about Gilroy Sidewalk Repair Program, and then below it also gives you a PDF of the contractors, but also the sidewalk repair program under sidewalk information related documents.
Okay. So what Tom was saying, in case you guys didn't hear, was in response to Jack's question.
Under
Yeah.
engineering in a
Under the
website.
engineering on the website,
Yeah.
there's information about sidewalk repair. If you want to look at it.
Well, not of projects, but it's for, right.
But maybe we could get to that like the roads.
Right.
I think my dad wants to know as well. Sidewalks in front of your house? New sidewalks? Yes, yes.
Yes.
Sir, your sidewalk is on the program this year to be repaired.
No.
I got asked a question by somebody I know that you may know, and so I looked that up and it is on the list.
Oh, good.
There's the first scandal.
Yeah.
Saw it here and recorded. Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joseph Pantaleone. I'm an Eagle Scout for Gilroy Troop 792. And I'm here because I wanted to propose a concept that was 6 years in the making for a new green space for the community of Gilroy off of Santa Teresa First Street for that plot of land that's for sale. And it would be a proposal for a Gilroy Garlic Memorial Park for the people who not only fell from the Garlic Festival, but as a new green space for the community members who don't have a park near them, for the location not only between Sunrise, but as well as the dog park just down the street, and not only accenting the natural environment and nature of Gilroy, but as well as the harmonization of community and intersection of heritage and remembrance for our community members.
Thank you. Yeah, so Joseph, appreciate you coming in. He's giving me his full proposal here with designs. So thank you for doing that, and we'll review it and get back to you. Thank you very much for doing that. Appreciate it. All right, come on, more questions. Yes, sir.
You see the police and fire growing in the next 2 years, staff?
If the population grows, ideally, our service levels will grow along with it, which means certainly that would be ideal, right? Do we have the funds in the budget to do it? That's what we'll be figuring out this spring. But yeah. Another non-answer, sorry. Yeah.
Additional parking tickets we have there in summer.
What's that?
With the additional parking tickets.
Yeah, there's a revenue. All right, there you go. Terrence, you hear that? There's more revenue source. You take that one up. In the back there, go ahead.
Last meeting, talked about Monday center.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll let you answer if you can, but just in case you guys didn't hear, there's a proposal in Gilroy to get a data center by Amazon, and they're gonna be building out past the highway. So if there's an update.
Yeah, not a big update. We've been working with the Amazon folks on them getting their permit and their construction and all that. So they're in the design phase of that building. and working through some of the environmental things. So it's really just moving along in the process right now. But I really can tell you when they're going to break ground.
Can you say more specifically where it's going?
It's
Roughly?
isn't it? It's 152 and Camino Arroyo on that corner.
That's empty lot. Empty lot?
Yes, on that empty lot on the corner.
Kitty corner from the Shell, there's a Shell gas station, right? There's Best Buy kind of behind it. Yeah.
Near Walmart.
Starbucks.
It's a little bit of a complicated project because of the batteries and which is not the main part, but also the cooling. And so we've been working with them trying to use recycled water to cool the facility. And so that's kind of why the project's kind of dragged along, but it's certainly moving.
Yes, Rebecca.
Is the city's, will be do anything about a tree in your neighborhood on some of the properties that are not in the, what do you call it, between the sidewalk? We don't have-
Park Strip.
Yeah, we don't have those on our street.
Yeah.
In their front yard, like a redwood that says Thomas Building, that hangs over into other properties and prevents, of course, solar available.
Yeah.
What, if I report it on that, is it gonna do anything, or the neighbors basically haven't done anything, it's 30 years old?
Yeah, I'll try that one. No, the city's not gonna help, right? I believe, am I on the right track? Yeah, it's a neighbor thing. It's a civil, I mean, I'm not suggesting litigation, but it's between neighbors.
Is the neighbor, is the property owner responsible for trimming the tree back so that it doesn't infringe on other property?
I believe everyone has a responsibility to keep their plant material to their property line if that's what you want, right? And I know, and we live in a world now where that tree was planted and was tall before we were in solar. That's the challenge, right? This happens a lot, and this is the business I work in, that unfortunately, the new planning guidelines prevent things like that from happening. In homeowner developments now, they don't allow to plant a sequoia that wants to be 300 feet or a valley oak that wants to be 90 feet wide. But unfortunately, in older, more mature neighborhoods, that's the challenge, right? People love big trees until it shades their solar, right? It's a problem. It's a very difficult problem, especially if neighbors don't see eye to eye on it. Yeah.
And can I ask another?
Sure.
And I'm sorry, maybe this was covered because I came in a little late, but in terms of the new, civic center, or, the funding for that?
Yeah.
What is the vision for that? Is that?
Yeah, so Rebecca's asking about how would we, if we're talking about the Civic Center master plan, right? So I'll back up and review for everybody. There's a conversation that has begun that we are studying the idea of what will this entire site from Dowdy to Church from 6th to 7th look like one day down the road, right? So there's ideas being thrown around that, there's a rec center and a pool. There's a theater and youth center. There's a new senior center. There's a new city hall, right? When was this built? Sorry? 70?
Well, his last major remodel was 1980.
Okay, so should there be a new city hall? So right now we are just in the design and conversation and conceptual stage about what does this community need versus what does this community want? And then just like we were talking about before, how do you pay for it? So something like this would be paid for by a bond, right? So we would be going back to the public and asking the public to consider a bond, right? So what does that mean, a bond? That's a nice word for saying higher taxes on your property taxes, right? That's where it's funded.
So, have you ever looked at like can you do a parcel tax study or something?
That's what the mayor was talking about. There's a few options. You could have a sales tax. But for infrastructure projects, think about like what you've approved for the school districts tend to be bought or parcel taxes, on your property tax. And that's what voters have tended to be more supportive of, for specific projects.
Library?
Say library.
Yeah.
My understanding is some take more votes than others depending on right? And, I also understand from being involved with the schools, that we're one of the fewest, school districts in the county, in all of county, that doesn't have personal tax. We pay for our schools, the bonds, so that we are not allowed any exemptions for seniors and low income. So that's something that I really would like the city to consider, even though I am in favor of the civic center, changing the growth. But I think we need to look at supporting our low income and our seniors and how we're gonna. And I know that it's always been an issue for me that most other counties, the rest of the counties, there's so many school districts that have exemptions, we have none. And I look at my tax statement, and it's mostly besides regular taxes, it's mostly the school.
And they may be asking for another,
Yeah. Okay.
right? As may Gavilan, as may City of Gilroy, so some challenges.
A bond would be 2/3, correct? And the library was a bond, was it not?
Yep, library was bought.
How about the police station? Do the Same,
It's part of the same boss.
same bond,
Yeah.
yeah. So we've been successful at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your taxpayers have generally supported bonds, have not generally supported sales taxes.
On the tree issue, you can trim the tree on your property line. I had a problem like that with a huge tree behind me. 3 of us neighbors got together and we talked to the lady about it. And she couldn't afford it at that point in time. I just gave her $1,000 because leaves were coming into my yard. So I met with the contractor who had the tree taken down. I paid for the whole thing and she made payments to me for the last year and a half. So, but you can work something out with the neighbor.
In this situation, it's 2 doors down from me, and my neighbor, who's 81 years old, is being affected, and it's to the point where it climbed her gutters, and she didn't know, and she had water in her walls.
Yeah.
Because of structural problems, so it's not major.
Yeah.
And trimming it is part of this building, it would be like.
We were the same issue, the tree was much higher than our property, but the limbs were hitting our house. Come all the way across.
Yeah,
So
it's
we just
massive.
worked it out with the neighbors, like I say, I paid for it. She paid payments.
These days,
It's a challenge. It's a challenge between neighbors. It happens all the time. Yeah. Go ahead.
There's a mistake. It's a redwood. You say redwood and you're going to be people living in the tree.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's not on public property. It's not on public property. But I hear your point. Yeah. Don't do a public notice.
Berkeley would be down.
Yeah. Yes,
Just information,
yeah.
talking about bond for seniors, the water district is April 15th to the 24th, apply. If you're a senior, and you pay $70-something off.
Oh, there's a small break. Yeah. Yes, Tom.
I know it's outside the city of Gilroy's jurisdiction, but they're in a closed access from Gavin College to Monterey Road. Part of the overall design is to extend Santa Teresa down to Highway 25. Does the city have any knowledge as to where the status of that project, that portion of the project?
I'll let Councilmember Klein comment on that. He's very involved with that committee.
Yeah,
At the regional
basically
level.
at this point, they have the funding for 101 to 25 for phase 1. Talk about phase 1 and the improvements, what they're going to do there. They have no funding for Santa Teresa extension to 25, other than $2 million, I believe they funded for the environmental report. So they're saying they're not going to look for funding for that until 27, because they've got to get through the funding they've got on the freeway. So right now, that's the plan. I would just suggest Gilbert is here. So have a conversation with Gilbert today And I know Speaker Rivas knows about this project and he's aware of it. He's from here, so of course he's gonna be aware of that.
That's why I brought it
It's
up today.
incumbent on
She's
us.
sitting over there.
Yeah.
The city, we're gonna do what we can do, but we're limited by that. And working with the county, DTA, Caltrans, it all is talking with our state and helping us get that, because it's so critical. We close it on the 16th, I think is the date, both Mesa and Castro Valley. That means in order for Gavilan, you have to come down to Monterey to Chestnut. And we saw with the flooding, how crazy it was. You close Miller and suddenly you have major issues with really public safety. And so it's a big deal. And when you get at that corner, I was there a couple weeks ago at Santa Teresa, and you look over, it's not that far. Is it a mile and a half? But it's like, there's so much that has to happen. And it's about a $42 million project right now. It could change in the next couple of years. And especially if it's not done till 32, how much more is that going to be, as we all understand how costs rise? So
Just for the benefit. So over here.
And I appreciate you flagging that.
You should look at the traffic over there on a Friday evening or any night during commute hours. There's a huge amount of traffic goes down Santa Teresa, picks up Monterey Road there at Castro Valley. And on holiday weekends, Friday nights in particular, traffic backs up to Chestnut.
Yeah, if not further.
Yeah.
well, you have people that will not want to be on 101, so they get off
Yeah.
at Maston and they come down Santa Teresa to get over to Castro Valley to get there. And that's going to be gone on the 16th. So that'll change the whole thought process, the ways. So they're going to have to look at their ways as far as what do we do now, which is going to impact that whole 101, 25, especially with the construction process. It's going to be tough.
And it's what you said, 2027, so you're talking probably, or I think it's connected 2030.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at all the projects that Caltrans has just in this county, and they're slated to happen once they're funded, but they can't determine how long that's going to take until they get the funding to get the ball rolling. And then it's all the processes after that. So it's a lot. It really is.
And then Glen Loma's building more homes, they have more traffic.
Correct.
The project's happening, so
Yes.
that's.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah. It's a critical artery for Gilroy and, Morgan Hill and Hollister, that extension. That's got to be connected as soon as possible to, mitigate the issues that we deal with on a daily basis with weather and just the different things we're challenged with.
So I'm with the speaker next Thursday at 12:30. First thing on the list will be this. I mean, and Tom's shaking his head because he lives out there, right? So he sees it every single day or every Friday, weekend, especially in summer. So it's going to impact a lot of our community.
I'll just share, so I'm relatively new to the team, but I have heard the issue already several times. So I'm trying to get up to speed on what's going on over there at 25 and 52 Santa Teresa. As the mayor and council member has seen that we're coming out a little bit more often down to Gilroy, to trying to get under a better understanding of what's going on over here. So, I appreciate you flagging that, and happy to have a conversation after. Thank you.
Thank God we don't live in houses.
What's their reading number? They got like a 4,000 reading number too, or something like that,
I don't know, Hollister?
to grow and Hollister, or they say years.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
To me, some things are so obvious. There's no need to talk it out, just get the damn thing done.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, you talk about that punch through in that road?
Just saying in general, right? I mean, this subject in particular, I know this has been coming, well, this has been building over the years,
Yeah.
right?
It's all reactive, right? And we all pay the price for it. But yet it's out of our jurisdictions and funding level by far. Yeah.
At least buy the land, because in San Jose, they didn't buy the land, and the freeway went in, people had houses there. And they knew the years that the houses were planned, should build it, contract land and build it.
I don't think land acquisition's the problem.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not, it's money. Jeannie?
Speaking of possible future traffic on Hecker Pass, The property that's by the roundabout, or it's there. Originally it was slated duplex, and then it got shut down, that my understanding, and it was commercial, below, with lofts above, and then that didn't pan out, and now it's like 116 dwelling units built there, and that's a lot, you know, it's more people that have more than 2 cars per household. Where does the city stand on that, and where is that project at the moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's, just because there's a sign doesn't mean there's a project.
No, I'm just saying, like I said, it was a duplex that got, then later that didn't pan out.
It's still zoned, but it always has been zoned, right? Ag tourism, right? Yeah, still zoned now. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming in this evening. I'm around for a few minutes. We'll have a chat. You asked me for a chat. Thank you very much. A few donuts, there's still more coffee. Appreciate you guys coming. Real quick with you too, if you don't mind. Yeah. No, I was just gonna comment on the smell.
Like 10, 8?
Yeah.